You can animate 3D enabled layers with a camera layer. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to create a camera layer and animate it, and in addition, animate your 3D enabled layers for dynamic movement. To start, I'm going to fill my background with a new sky background. I'm going to set this to rotate over the whole composition by clicking the stopwatch on the rotation property line and making 2 keyframes, one at the start and one at the end. I will adjust the rotation at the end so that the sky smoothly rotates over the time frame of the composition. To enable 3D on your layers, click on the 3D box in the Layer Timeline menu. Before I add the camera, I'm going to create 2 views for my composition. If you don't see it, stretch out the composition preview window. Select 2 views in the Views drop-down menu. One view is top, which is good. It gives me a bird's eye view of the camera and image layers. The other should be Active Camera. Active Camera shows you what your exported video will look like. To select a view, click on it. The blue triangles at the edges are the indication that you have selected it. You can change the view type, the scale of the view for each of these views. To add a camera, go to Layer, New, Camera. In the camera settings, you can choose a 50mm lens, which is a standard lens. This will provide little to no distortion or depth of field changes. Or a longer lens, say a 200mm, or a shorter wide lens at 25mm. Each will provide different effects. If you want to see the depth of field, that is the specific differences in focus in the foreground, middle ground, and background, then click on the Enable Depth of Field. Try using a long lens. It'll flatten the distance between the foreground, middle ground, and background, or a short wide lens, which will accentuate those distances. I'm going to use a more standard focal length, 50mm. But experiment with this. Now I'm going to animate a little camera move. On the position property line of the camera, adjust the camera position. Click on the stopwatch to start keyframes on this line and make another keyframe at the end. Full composition length keyframes will create a smooth, consistent motion throughout your shot. I'm going to animate a little push in on the camera by adjusting the Z position. As you can see in the top view, it moves towards the subject. You can push it in the composition viewer, but I find I have way more control using the transform menu in the timeline. Next, a little rotation. You have X, Y, and Z rotation on 3D layers. I'm going to add a little X rotation, 0 at the start, 5 degrees at the end. Let's preview that. The camera will only affect 3D enabled layers. The sky is not affected, and that's what I want. We can also animate the individual layers too. When you combine the movements of layers and the camera, then it tends to feel more natural. Let's animate our astronaut. Let's create a little move towards the camera with the Z-axis. Let's add a little rotation around 4 degrees to simulate the astronaut floating a bit. Then let's do a counter rotation on the ship to accentuate the movement of the astronaut, minus 20 degrees in the Z rotation. Here is our dynamic animation, with a camera layer affecting the 3D enabled layers and the 3D layers themselves in motion.